who's an apostle. The word apostle comes from a Greek word, apostolos. It comes from a Greek word, apostolos. That's the name apostle. And that apostolos was actually a name used among the secular Greek people. An apostolos was more like an ambassador, an emissary, or a messenger to the king. An apostolo was like the modern day ambassadors. Those were the apostolos. But in those days, a king will select a man. I'll explain it, then we'll write the notes. A king will select a man and send him to a territory to conquer the territory on behalf of the king, rule the territory on behalf of the king, and secure it on behalf of the king. So the king sends a man. But the man is not just sent without anything. He's sent with the authority of the king, and he's given resources. So in some territories, a king will put a ship full of resources, and that apostle became the captain of the ship that had the resources, and the captain of the team that has been sent to conquer the territory. The man went with the authority of the king that sent him. He went in the name of the king that sent him. And the pattern was very simple. The king did not select men that were not close to him. So in the secular infrastructure, the king will look for a friend close to him, send him with weapons, money, resources, and tell him, go to that territory, conquer it, rule it on my behalf. So by the time we are coming to the writing of the New Testament, they borrowed the word, because what the King of Kings was doing, he was sending his friends with his authority, with his resources, to go to territories, conquer the territory on behalf of the king, in the name of the king. So that is what an apostle was. And when Jesus called the 12, you don't find the name apostle in the Old Testament. When Jesus called the 12, he called them apostles, friends of the king. That's why the first calling was unto Jesus in Mark. I think Mark 3 and verse 14, the Bible says he called them to himself, because you cannot be sent by the king if you're not a friend of the king. Whenever you are sent by the king, you carry the authority of the king. That's why Jesus said, all power and authority has been given to me, so I send now thee. He never sent strangers. They were close to the king. So there are 5 things that characterizes the pattern of the apostle. 5 things. I mentioned these and we make a prayer. Number 1, an apostle was sent by the king. The same way you and me are going to be commissioned and sent by the king. An apostle was a friend of the king. Number 3, he carried the king's authority. He carried the king's authority. He carried the king's authority. All authority, all authority. Apostles don't operate in their own authority. That's why one of the emphases of the apostolic message is the emphasis of teaching about Jesus. Because the authority of Christ is in the message of Jesus. So they carry the authority. Number 4, he spoke the king's language. He spoke the king's language. We have to speak the language. There is something, when you go deeper in the apostolic, there is something we call the apostolic language. Some of the things you keep on hearing, dimensions, realms, ranks, powers, principalities, territories, there are certain vocabularies that are apostolic, patterns. Those are apostolic grammar. So he spoke the king's language. Number 5, he conquered a territory on behalf of the king. He conquered a territory on behalf of the king. And guess who was the first apostle? Jesus. Hebrews chapter number 3 and verse 1. Jesus was an apostle and a bishop. So we cannot build out of Jesus. That tells me you may not be an apostle, but under apostolic ministry you become apostolic. So everyone under the sound of my voice, people, sons and daughters in this house, you must carry a certain authority. You must operate under certain territories, subduing them for the glory of the king. That because we are sent, we are friends of Jesus, we are friends of the king, we are sent. We are sent. Look at the book of Hebrews chapter number 3 and verse 1. The Bible says, therefore, holy brethren, partakers of the heavenly calling, consider the apostle and the high priest of our confession. Who? So Jesus was the first apostle. How do I know that? John chapter number 6 and verse 68. John chapter number 6 and verse 68. He was sent by the Father. He was sent by the Father. An apostle is not sent by himself. He's not sent by the church. He's not sent by the elders. He's sent by heaven. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who did what? Who is an apostle? A man sent. When Jesus became a man and he was sent by God, God is the king, he became the first apostle. So even when we are calling all people apostles and all that, we have to build according to the pattern of Jesus, because he laid the template of the apostolic. Listen, the first assembly that Jesus had was an assembly of 12 sent ones. Because the power of the apostolic is not in how many are gathered, it's how many you have sent. So we are raising men, not so that they can become members. We are raising sons that can become warriors, that can be sent in a territory. So wherever you go, that's your territory. We can send you in the marketplace and tell you, secure the territory. How can you be in Kenya right now and the economy of Kenya, 50% is still in the hands of the Indians? Where are the apostles in the marketplace, sent by God to secure the economy of the land? Who is handling the resources of the kingdom? Because an apostle controlled the ship that carried the weapons and the resources so that he can go and secure a territory. You don't secure territories without resources. The crusade the man of God is doing will cost him 140 million, if I'm not wrong. Now someone is looking at me funny. Because you, when you are given 140, the cost of the apostolic changes. You become an investor. Whereas the Lord is saying, I am giving you resources because 1 million souls must come to the Lord. That's why you cannot receive the resources before you become a friend of God. God is not sending strangers. Look at the book of Mark chapter number 3 and verse 14. I think I'm right. Is it true? Mark chapter number 3 and verse 14. That's why Jesus never called them apostles first. Jesus never sent them first. No, there is something that happens. Many of us, Mark 3 and verse 14, the Bible says, then he appointed 12. Please, everybody read. I want you to read loudly. 1, 2, 3. Let me come down here. Then he appointed 12 that they might be with him. He appointed 12. 12 is the number of governance. That is a governmental, because the grace of the apostolic is governmental. That's why when they were 11, nothing could happen in Pentecost. They needed to be 12. The man that was selected by the casting of lots, that man did not do anything other than to complete the quorum of a governmental quorum. That's why they needed to be 12 in the upper room for the fire to come down, because the fire was the divine endorsement. The oil that was poured in the Old Testament became the fire that came in the New Testament. And Jesus poured the oil, because now you cannot be commissioned by a man. You don't need Samuel to commission Saul. You don't need Samuel to commission David. Now you need Jesus to commission you for his work. That's why in the book of Isaiah, the Bible says, who shall I send? Who shall I send? Are there men that are ready to be sent? And then it's asked, who shall go for us? Ready to die to self and carry the mandate of Jesus and begin to preach. Whether they accept it or not, you say, oh, unto me. That's what Paul said. If I don't preach the gospel, I consider everything else foolishness compared to the knowledge that I now have about Jesus Christ. Those are apostles. Men that can abandon the philosophies, the arguments, and allow, let Jesus be lifted. You preach until men call you a babbler. What is this babbler saying about the resurrection? But the report of men does not count, because you know at the end of the the day, if I run my race and keep my faith, even if I'm poured like a sacrifice, there is a crown set before me. Apostles don't work for rewards, they work for crowns.